we always consider state and federal grant money, and when we do, we always have to be cognizant that sometimes we have to be cognizant of when it comes in, because we don't always get it from the beginning of the year, and also the level of funding that we get. It isn't always fully funded, so we do have to just be cognizant of those things. So what are some of the cost savings measures? I mentioned them a few times. Here are some examples of the cost-cutting measures that we had found in previous years, and that do continue. Region 15 is self-insured, and Southbury does partner with us in that self-insurance. That means that we do not pay a management company for maintaining our insurance for our employees. That has saved us over $1 million annually beginning this year. We do purchase our oil and natural gas through, I believe, 2 different consortia, and that has saved us $35,000 and $40,000 this year, as an example. We participate with an energy conservation program, which has saved us over $2 million in the past 4 years. And we have converted from oil to natural gas at the high school, and we estimate that that's about $100,000 savings annually starting this current school year. Okay, in the next slide, when I said earlier that we look at every year at enrollment, and I said that sometimes where the enrollment shifts, it may or may not allow us to make personnel reductions. This year we are able to we are able to reduce our teaching staff without any appreciable increase in class size by 4 teachers. It says 4 FTE, that's edu-speak for full-time equivalent. It means 1 teacher teaching all day, all year long. So there will be 4 fewer teachers when we return to school in September. In addition, we have offered to our teachers an early retirement incentive. Early retirement incentives save the district money. 23 teachers have taken advantage of that early retirement incentive. Of those positions are all being refilled, except that 3 of them will allow us to absorb. 3 of those positions are not returning next year. Those 3 are 3 of the 4 that are being reduced. Okay? So just to be clear on this gets a little complicated, and I apologize. The total number of reduction in teaching staff is 4. We also are able to find a 0.4 FTE is a teacher who provides for 4/10 of her day, provides services for at-risk students, and we are able to fund that through a federal grant. So there will be no reduction in service, but we will be able to pay that out of a federal grant rather than out of district funds. Okay. In the next slide, these are the dollar savings for what I just mentioned, for a total savings of $537,000 in the proposed budget. Next slide is about all the wonderful things that give us the results that we saw in those first few slides in the beginning. These program components and all programs and all services for students are continuing. Okay, there are no cuts to any services for students or programs for students. Full day kindergarten, has been our first year for full day kindergarten. That will continue. SRBI is our program for students who are at risk. You want to know what that stands for, don't you? I know you do. I know you're just dying to hear. It stands for Scientifically Research-Based Intervention. I did not make up the title. The State Department of Education did. It means we help students who have special needs. Our curricula continues to be upgraded. We upgrade our library materials on a regular basis. That's very important to keep our reading material rich and engaging for our students. We are very proud to have a digital learning academy at the high school, which offers high-tech alternative courses in math and in science and in such interesting areas as e-commerce and more areas of courses that I would like to take. We have an ongoing commitment to up-to-date technology, and this budget does maintain our reasonable class sizes. So that's continuation from the good work that we have always done. Within this budget, there are some new program improvements as well. We will be purchasing new social studies textbooks in grade 6 and 7. We have them in grade 8, so getting them in grade 6 and 7 will complete that for us. The money for that is included within this budget. We are purchasing some additional resources. Those could be they're not textbooks for student use. They could be professional books for teacher use. They are also what we call in the education world math manipulatives. These days children are using concrete materials in some cases to model complex thinking, and we need to supplement that supply for our elementary schools. And we also want to complete a school-wide installation of computer projection equipment. So very similar to what's being projected right here tonight. With 24 more of those, every classroom in the high school will be able to project computer images so that that kind of instruction can happen in our classrooms across the board. And there also is a recommendation to increase the time covered by our athletic trainer. And lest one might think that I'm talking about the kind of trainer that you talk to when you go to your gym. Okay. An athletic trainer for schools is someone who is trained specifically in the management of sports injuries. They are certified, and they are there for student safety. So there is a proposal so that we would be able to provide greater coverage for more sports on a prioritized basis. In the next series of slides, we begin looking at the budget detail. The total dollar amount of the budget is listed on this slide, $64,382,446. As we go through these slides, these numbers are based on my proposed budget. Okay, the level of board discussion has been slightly lower. These slides have not yet been adjusted. And in that graphic, okay, it looks like it's big enough for you to read all the different categories. There are 8 categories that the budget is broken down into, and you will see that salaries, of course, in education will be the largest amount. And in the next slide, you have a representation of the difference from the current budget to the proposed budget, either by increase or by decrease by each of those 8 in each of those 8 areas. And it might be a little hard to read, but it's facilities that is actually lower in the proposed budget. And then what we'll do in the next slides, and I will go through these rather quickly so that we can allow time if there is time for public comment or for questions coming up. But in the next slides, we'll look at each of these 8 areas, and I'll mention some of the key drivers. So this is now getting into the budget detail. In the next slide, salaries, we have an increase of the dollar amount that you see on the slide. The percentage increase is the percentage of the total budget. So at the end, after we go through all these 8, if you add them all up, you will get the 3.92 that I originally presented. That's how that's calculated. In the area of salaries, that's our obligated costs for contractual raises, Social Security, Medicare. So I mentioned the increase in the pension obligation, that's $125,000. And the increase in here is offset by that $537,000 savings that I discussed earlier. In insurances, there is an increase there. $47,000 increase in property insurance. Our medical insurance premiums, we actually had a very good year this year. That's always a good thing. We have no net increase for medical insurance. And the total increase here is offset by the savings that we have realized by being self-insured. Okay. In transportation, we do have an increase in our in-district transportation. Those are the buses that bring our students to school every day. We do have also additional out-of-district transportation. Students with special needs who cannot be serviced in district, we are required to provide transportation to them to go out of the district. In our instructional lines, that is where we have the 24 additional computer projectors at the high school. And a big part of the rest of that is annual subscriptions for databases, network management, school messenger, and so on. Those things that keep us running efficiently. Purchase services is the largest part of this next slide. Okay. So we do have the district entered a lease purchase agreement a year ago. This is the second year of our payment toward that lease purchase agreement to increase the number of laptops for student use in school. We have one more year to pay on that. And then the other large majority of this is purchase services for things that are required for our students with special needs, like speech therapy, occupational therapy, and so on. We do have a small decrease in facilities that's coming from our cost savings through the various consortia that we participate with, and we are able to reduce custodial supplies and actually uniforms as well this year. In the next slide, for tuition, for those students who choose to attend a vocational or a magnet school, we are required to pay tuition for them. There are small increases listed here. The majority of the increases here come from additional special education tuition that is required based on individual student needs. In the past, those needs were not funded necessarily from these lines, and because they were not funded here, they had to be taken from other accounts. So actually the increase here looks larger than it is in reality. The numbers that you have are truthful. They are the numbers from this line, but a lot of this is due to correcting that in that particular line it had been underfunded in the past. And in debt service is a loan, and when the district does any construction, we float bonds to pay for that construction. The most recent example of that was the new gym at the high school. And in the next slide, you see a graphic of the average daily membership by town for the current school year on the left, and for the next school year, for the school year coming up on the right. By law, the average daily membership is calculated based on October 1st of the previous year. So this past October 1st determined the percentage share that is assigned to Southbury and to Middlebury for the 14-15 budget. And you will see by looking from 13-14 to 14-15 that Southbury's share has gone up by, looks like 0.54% of 1%, a little tiny bit more than half of a percent. Okay. Here's a summary slide. New things that we are getting. We are continuing our efficiencies and initiatives from previous years. We have found $537,000 in savings in personnel. And we are funding our increased pension obligations and our increased costs for energy and electricity and salaries. And in terms of the timeline, the next thing coming up is this coming Monday night. The board will present its budget at the high school, so please join us if you can. And then on April 7th, it's the public hearing and the vote and adoption of the budget, also at the high school. And next slide reminds everyone to please come and vote. The next slide shows you where, if you would like to see more information on the region's website, That's the home page. You simply go on the left. There's navigation buttons. You can click on the budget, voting information, and you can find just about everything that you would want to know right there. And the last slide says thank you on behalf of our students. I thank you for listening.
So this being a Board of Selectmen meeting, I'll ask the board if they have any particular questions for Regina. Very complete. I did find that Heritage Village was, I thought, an interesting question, which, because there's so much news of this in the press, the effect that the Common Core curriculum has on this budget. Can you address that?
The Common Core has been around since 2010. Region 15 is well prepared for Common Core. One of the things, the only thing financially in this budget that, that one might think is Common Core related is one of the pieces is an increase in reading nonfiction. It does not mean that reading literature is going away. It simply means that in addition to reading literature, it is important that students are able to read complex nonfiction texts. We tend to read nonfiction and literature differently, and it is important for students to have experience in both of those. So there are funds within this budget to increase our nonfiction books, both in classroom libraries and in our school libraries as well.
And if I could, from time to time, we've made quite an effort as a town to be more focused on recycling. I was wondering if you could speak to how Region 15 approaches recycling. So we just, well, could hear it from you. I thought you were going to ask it.
I wasn't going to put you on the spot, dude.
Oh, okay. So being new here, I can tell you that I do recycle everything. I do believe that all of our schools are recycling. I am told that all of our schools have recycle buckets and at least paper is being recycled. It is my understanding as well that those items that perhaps make it into the garbage that don't belong, that could have been recycled, are actually separated once they get to their final destination. So ultimately, we believe that the recycling is happening as it should.
Does the region dispose of its own trash, or does it come through the town?
I think you do it on your own. It doesn't come to our transfer station.
Yeah, I mean, from a cost perspective, and so I've got 2 children in the school that they will tell you, as I think every student will, that actually the schools are vastly under recycling. And there's so many places where they don't have recycling bins. And it's amazing because the children, obviously, the region does a fantastic job teaching them about recycling. You know, I went home from having this little recycling bin, now I have 2 giant trash bins of recycling and a little can of actual garbage, which from a cost savings perspective, as we know on the town side, every time we can recycle more, we save money. So I actually posed this question, Ed, which is why nobody asked it. You know, my sense and guess is that there are significant cost savings there that the region debt, especially if you're the ones who are paying for it as opposed to the towns. I mean, I know we're doing what we can with the town, and we can do on the town side. So I'll just leave it with you now to think about ways to increase that.
Thank you. I'll take a look at that. Thank you.
Take it all number, Regina.
That works too.
Thank you so much. And, excuse you, you're more than welcome to stay, but there on Monday. With that, we'll move on to public comment. Before we begin public comment tonight, I thought maybe John Monteleone might want to give us an update on, I think, a question that's on a lot of people's minds with regard to the investigation.
As I think most of you know, there's been an investigation regarding the animal control operations here in Southbury, and the Board of Selectmen a couple of weeks ago voted to bring in an independent independent person to take a look at the matter, and that was done. I was appointed the individual who worked with this particular person, and and a number of interviews have already taken place. There are a few more that are going to be taking place, and according